How to make a living as a coach. So I've been in the coaching and facilitation space for over 15 years. Done a few different things in that time, mostly specializing in the area of embodiment. If you're watching this, that's probably what you know me for. I've also done a fair bit of corporate work and also coach training. So I'll go through some different strategies, because knowing a lot of employing coaches, training coaches, I've kind of seen what works over the years. Though, as ever, different things work for different people. So here's my rambling thoughts on the topic. All right. So, how do you make a living as a coach? Well, you need clients, right? So first of all, you need to learn some kind of marketing. That, I think, for most people who get into coaching can be a bit scary, or they just kind of go at it a bit scattergun. Posting on Instagram or something, think, I have to do social media, I have to do all these things, and they don't really have a clear sense of what they're doing. I'd say key thing here is go back to first principles. So what is marketing in that sense? It's getting to know people who may later buy from you. So making people aware you exist, having some kind of permission to contact them regularly, normally because you're giving some kind of value to them, like this video perhaps, or a podcast, anything else. Building trust through that process, staying in contact with them through that process, and then at some point saying, hey, do you want to buy my coaching? So that's the basic principles. I do courses on that. I mentor people on that. You don't need to be a marketing expert, actually. I'm not. You just need to be sort of almost like half competent. I would say for a lot of people who train as a coach don't put enough effort into that at the beginning. And, it's not their fault. It's probably not even covered in their coach training, which I think is kind of a pity. It's one of the things we always do at least a little bit on in our different trainings is how to sell this stuff. Yeah. If people spent 2 or 3 hours a week learning about marketing, and there's sorts of ethical people out there, George Cal, Tad Hargraves, Julia Chanteray, there's 3 people that I've followed for a while. In whatever learning format you like, watching YouTube videos, reading books, listening to podcasts, whatever, if you do that, like for, 6 months, a year, you're going to know enough about marketing to at least understand those basic principles and give it a go. Often what's key, I think, for coaches is to find some kind of a niche, right? Niche, different ways of saying it. Tad Hargrave is your man for this. There's other people that talk about it, but he's one of the big ones. Why this is amazing is you want to be like the guy for something, the woman for something, yeah? Known so that people can say, oh, he's the anxiety coach, yeah? He's the person that... Sometimes people cockily use this definite article, but it's like it's difficult to be remembered for anything. You want people to go, oh yeah, he's great at that. Yeah, he's the coach that deals with, I don't know, perimenopause. She's the coach that deals with parenting kids with autism, whatever the thing is. Something very specific that people can go, right, that is the person, given that most coaching is happening virtually now. So there's a decision to be made there. You can sort of do face-to-face local coaching, but your market's so much bigger. And this enables, in fact, even requires, I would say, a kind of niching down. There's lots of objections there. There's lots of process you can go through. It's a big thing. For me, it was focusing on embodiment and going, right, this is what I really want to get known for. And I would get brought in as a coach and a trainer fairly early days to organisations that was like training organisations, or I get called as a guest trainer at different places when they're like, well, we need someone that covers the body. Who do we know in Europe who's an expert in that? Mark. It didn't take me that long to develop that reputation and to come in as a guest trainer. For example, I came in on other coach trainings, other courses, other corporate trainings. I remember getting brought into Shell like fairly early days by a group of people that had said, oh, okay, this guy's an embodiment trainer, we need one. Let's get him involved, because we know the body matters, but we don't really do that piece, and that was my niche. Yeah, cool. So having some way to find clients, contact clients, give them a taste, enroll them in that to make a living from it. You need a regular system for that. You can't just rely on friends of friends. Might be the beginning. Referrals are great, and long term that might be all you need. Once you've spent some years building up enough people to refer, right? So referrals are great, high trust. It means you don't have to do so much work yourself. Even that, though, you might actually have to do something in terms of like encouraging referrals, saying, here's a card, pass it on. Or if you've got a friend, just mentioning it to someone at the end of a session, doing a deal for friends. There's still some marketing potentially in that. you'll hear some people sort of arrogantly say, oh, I just get all my work through referrals, and I'm like, yeah, if you've been around 30 years, that's possible, or if you're just very lucky. Most people need to do some kind of marketing, and yeah. In terms of referrals, you're looking at people who are like influencers in different fields. By that, I don't mean some yoga teacher on Instagram or influencer. I mean people, Ted would call them hubs, people who know lots of people in that space. It could be a particular community. This one therapist who does nearly all her work in the geek community, and she does things at Comic Con. She does things at Star Trek conventions. Does stuff where she dresses up in special ways. It's fun for her, and that's the thing. And even her website, it's like her on a Game of Thrones throne. It's very geeky. And if you're a nerd or a geek or any of those things, it's very appealing. You're like, hey, I trust this person more. And that community can adopt her as a therapist. Yeah, it's like these people get passed around a particular community. Let's say you were the coach who works with, I don't know, kink community, bikers. Yeah, you were the therapist for bikers. Or let's use a fictional example. The therapist that works with Tony Soprano. Let's say you are the therapist that gangsters can come to. You're going to get those quietly, passed around referrals. Key things there, it's a definite community. They've definitely got some money. Can't be totally broke unless you're going to get someone outside to pay for it. That's a valid model, actually. If you do want to work with people who are very poor, then you've got to find a funding model. You've got to find, either a way of getting grants or a charity that will support you setting up your own charity, etc. That is a valid model. But for the rest of us, if you don't want to do that, then it needs to be a group with some money and some key thing, definability. You're either it or not. You're a nerd or you're not. You're kinky or you're not. You're a mobster or you're not. Yeah, cool. So you need some way of reaching those people, some specialism, I would say. There are coaches who get by without a specialism. Yeah, it's possible, but it's just much harder because it's like, what do they do? And you can't really say it, and it's tricky. Rather than he's the person for this. Like I have a bit of sciatica in my leg at the moment. If I was told this is a sciatica specialist physio, it's like so much better than just like, oh yeah, it's a random physio. And that means people will travel further, people will pay more money, people you're more valued by those people in various ways. So some kind of niching is very, very helpful. Some kind of a system, so you're systematically reaching out to people, finding people, some amount of time in your diary for that. And people will ask, do I do Facebook? Do I do Instagram? Well, it depends. Is your audience there? Yeah. Like I don't particularly do TikTok because my audience isn't there. Annoyingly, my audience is podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'd say the people that do best, actually, I have a bit of an organization behind me so we can manage to do 4 just about. Generally, though, the people that do best are ones who find a channel that they can be really, really good at. And that doesn't have to be online. It could be, face-to-face networking. They're just brilliant at it. They did get all their coaching clients from local business meetings or, a particular kind of face-to-face thing. But you need some channel that you can be good at. Often people only have one. So my friend Sean, for example, just uses Instagram. He's great at Instagram. He's got 100K followers. He's consistently making great value for people. He's a dating coach. He's got a particular audience, a particular kind of niching. It's not super specific, but it's not everyone. Yeah, he's not, I don't know, teaching pickup or something, right? He's generally teaching sort of middle-aged women with a particular issue. And, he's really mastered that one format. It can be tricky to master different formats. And I sometimes think we spread ourselves far too wide, even with a team, it can be helpful. I think in terms of that, there is a decision to be made of, do you go it alone or do you have a team? And there's there's pros and cons. A kind of middle ground is often people have like an assistant, a PA. That's very helpful for most people. Outsourcing everything you don't love, outsource everything you're not great at, free up your time, super important, right? Like my team can't make this video as well as I can, but they could edit it. That's why I have a team, because they'll do the editing and the uploading. Thanks, Mira. And that kind of stuff. So you do have a kind of decision. Do you learn to do everything yourself? When you're starting out, you might have to. Or do you, get an assistant, which I'd say as soon as possible, whether it's social media or PA or whatever, to free up time. Or do you then actually go the model of employees? At one point I employed 25 people. There's a scale to that, and the problem with that is I had to make, 150K a month or something just to make payroll, to make everyone's salaries. So there's also a pressure in that. Yeah. And then you end up managing, which is another thing. But there are some economies to scale, and when you've got a whole team of people working for you, you can just produce beautiful content, beautiful. You can have a whole marketing department doing a lot of that for you. Often the dream for coaches is to outsource their marketing completely. I don't know anyone that's done that fully successfully. You end up at least managing the marketing team, contributing, having to do content, whatever it is. Yeah, it's a bit of a dream. Like, will someone else do the marketing for me? If you can find it, great. I honestly just don't see it. I don't see it. I see some people who kind of sold their businesses, or they have a CEO like years down the line, but usually they're fairly involved. And I've been the one man band. I've been the person with the assistant. Now I have a small team, and I did have like a medium sized team, like 25 people. Decided that wasn't for me. I have actually looked at going back to the model of just having an assistant rather than the small team I have now. And I know I could earn a living from a coach just riding the list that I've built. Absolutely massive asset for most coaches. Building a list is way better than social media a lot of the time. Plus my socials, like, at the moment I'm putting out a mentoring thing. We just put it out on Facebook and Instagram, and we've immediately had like 70 people interested, and I'm just trying to fill 50 places. So it's like, okay, clearly all that work on social over time, putting myself, I don't like this phrase actually, putting myself out there. You don't need to put yourself out there. You need to get people to know you. You don't need to put yourself out there. You need to attract rather than promote, to steal a phrase. So, yeah, there's a few thoughts on that. Where was I? So some kind of a system, some kind of a niche is helpful. Yeah, I'd thought about just going back to the one man band or the one person plus assistant, I think, model. And I know I could earn a living just as a coach because I can charge, I've got enough of a reputation that I can charge a fairly high fee. So you either, as a coach, need to charge a decent rate, which might mean, for example, corporate work. I used to do a lot, and corporates can pay really well. Or it might be, day rates were good. I did corporate work as a facilitator and a coach. Or I'll come back to that, come back to corporate stuff in a minute. Or you need to have a good enough reputation or a strong enough niche that you can charge a lot and people will go, yeah, I'll pay for it because this guy's the man, this person is the expert on this topic, right? So like in embodiment space, it's like, I have a pretty established reputation after, so I think it was 17 years it worked out the other day. Had a sober anniversary, and I started my business just after I got sober. So I think it's 17 years, 17 and a half. Almost old enough to vote. Check it out. Okay. So glad I said vote and not make porn, hey? That would have ruined this video. All right, so old enough to know what I'm talking about a bit, I think. All right, so the one person model or system model I think is quite valid, and I do see the attraction of it actually. I'm settling, I think, on this small team model. I didn't like the big team model, but for some people running that big business is great. Other ways to go as a coach, the corporate world. If you have a background in corporate, it really helps. Or like me, you can learn to speak, buy a suit, learn to speak enough of that language. Background and connections and speaking right and feeling right to people is helpful. There are other groups with money. For example, one of my students is a surgeon and a coach. And she may work, she's cutting back on the surgery she does. So she's in America, so that's not the NHS where it has to be full time. And yeah, she's got a lot of legitimacy with that community, speaks to that community, knows their problems, their stresses, the language they speak. She's got authority, she's got connections, there's membership organisations, she's got ins into different groups on Facebook about for surgeons and whatever. So, I mean, she's in a great spot for that. And that's another group of people who, they might not have much time, but they're not broke, right? If someone's a surgeon, unless they're very junior, they've got at least some money, yeah? So for her, that to me, it just makes sense that she works with that group. Corporate's another one. There's some things I could say about how to earn money with that group, how to dress, how to talk. If you're a coach, being careful of too much like hippie or personal growth language. It's just a bit too esoteric, or talk about energy and chakras and stuff. I've read whole books on that, the working and business side. But it's not the only way to go, but it is a valid way. I know some of my students work with, they prefer sort of more like digital nomads or entrepreneurs, different people. Again, depends on what you love, what you're good at, who you have access to, whether you speak their language, those kind of things. And that process of figuring out who to work with can take a while. All right, other way to go, coach trainings. So this is the same with yoga, you get almost like a pyramid scheme, coaches training coaches to train coaches, What will people pay money for? Actually, what people pay money for? Sex, money, and health. With sex, we could say kids as well, having their own kids. So it's like reproduction, let's say. Yeah. So people pay money to have a marketing coach. I've definitely coached a lot of people on that. Stuff around romance and love, and then parenting. You know, I'm not a parent, so I don't do that. But say my friend Roma does that. People pay money for that, and health stuff. You know, health coaching. They're the big three. Maybe spirituality can be in there, but they're the things people generally pay for in different formats, different ways. The coach training model can be lucrative, though I'd say, you know, there needs to be an integrity here. Have you been coaching long enough to do it? So at the moment, there's a lot of like yoga teachers teaching yoga teachers who haven't really done that much yoga, a few years maybe. And I could hold my hands up and say when I first started training embodiment coaches, I was quite new to embodiment. Well, not new, but I wasn't experienced enough to be running my own coach training. Now I kind of grown into it. You know, what is it? 10 years later, it's kind of like much more experienced. I think we're doing really good, actually genuinely really good coach training now. But at first, I don't think we were. Certainly not the first year or two. Yeah, we were just experimenting. So I think I was out of integrity there. I'll admit it. And it's tempting because you're like, okay, I can train coaches and people will pay more money for that. As I said, it's kind of like a pyramid scheme. And I go, unless you've really got a lot of expertise, a lot of experience, or, like in my case, a kind of super niche that you've really geeked out on, really got into, I'd go, like, should you be doing that? Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. Far better, I'd say, to just become a good coach, get good at what you do, get a reputation for it, get that niche. Maybe do business or working with some other lucrative group. Maybe build, a really good social media brand. Maybe build a really good list. And not things work for different people. Like a friend of mine, David, he'll just be on Facebook and he'll see someone that's got a problem and he'll offer them a free coaching session. Like no, just free coaching session. If you like it, maybe you take me up as a coach as a paid service later. Very, very simple thing. I think he's selective who he picks and what kind of issues and stuff like that. Whether the person looks like he might have a job and some money, but he's just very straightforward about it. And that's his method. Pretty straightforward method. As I said, I mentioned Sean does Instagram. I know people that have got really good at making reels. They love that. Other people love blogging, so they want to be on camera. There's some different methods. This has been pretty rambling. I hope this helps and makes some kind of sense to you. Good luck.